Hey, besties. Good afternoon, good morning. How's everybody doing? Happy Sunday. It's been a whole week since I saw you all last. So it's good to see you again. Hmm. Who we got here? Dr. Deb, say hello. Hi, happy Sunday. Hi, Carrington. Good afternoon. Hi, Heart. Good to see you also. And hello to those that are watching, but maybe not in the chat. It's been forever. It does feel like it's been a long time. Um, yeah, I hope y'all had a good couple of weeks since the last time I saw you. It's been a lot for me. So I can only imagine that it's been a lot for you guys as well. But tons of water in the sky. So much water in the sky. Mercury stations retrograde today. Jupiter stations retrograde on Tuesday, which Jupiter's basically been stationary all month. And then the sun is going to enter Scorpio next Sunday. So much water. But the good news is that Mercury will go back into Libra at some point, bringing us a little bit more air. And then, of course, Jupiter is going to go back into Gemini at some point, giving us more air as well. So we'll have a little bit of separation from all of the water and all of the drowning. And then when planets start entering Sagittarius, we'll get lots of fire, but don't want to get too ahead of myself. The reason I bring up this air and water conversation is because it's a lot of what I want to talk about today. And full disclosure, I microdosed this morning, and then I took a little bit more about 20 minutes ago. So if you notice a change in my voice, part of that is because I haven't said any words this morning, but also because I am under the influence, and it's a very interesting energy to start off. I feel the first thing I felt kind of wanting to come up is a little bit of grief and wanting to cry. Don't know what about. I'll explore that later. But I did a little bit of stretching before I came on here, and then I listened to some Doja Cat. And so I feel prepared to speak. Hey, Eric. Okay. First, let's talk about what air actually is, the tool of air, for those who don't know, and maybe for those who do know, and who need a little refresher. Air in astrology is about also hi, but we in this lunar return, child. We really are in this lunar return. Happy lunar return to us, Eric, and any other Gemini moons listening now or later. We get a nice Gemini moon lunar return on the same day as a Mercury retrograde, so it feels personal. But air in astrology, it's language, concepts, ideas, the imagination, words, abstract thought. It's also the ability to objectify something or make something into an object. So I think a lot of that objectification has to do with ideals of things or principles, concepts again, just some abstract, intangible form of something, and the way that you conceptualize that in your mind, which may be different than how it actually exists in reality, which I think is more earth. So air is very intangible. It's fleeting, it comes and it goes, but it is a lot of what shapes our experience of the world, because it's how we come to name it and how we come to share it with other people, is using the tool of hair. Hi, Sloan. So air can also be the experience of shrinking or self-deprecating. Um it can be dissociating, which is a big one that I want to talk about. And it can also be not speaking. It can be holding your tongue. It can be the freeze state. It can be a fawn state sometimes, but mostly a freeze state. And that kind of out of body experience that you get, similar to dissociation or just spacing out, where you're not really in your body, you're not really on earth, you're not really present with what's going on inside or outside of you. And dissociation as a coping strategy, I think it just kind of has a weird reputation right now. especially after 3 years of Saturn in Aquarius, and now having these eclipses in Aquarius, Leo and Aquarius again. It's like I think we've villainized dissociation a lot as this thing that we don't want to be in, and as this thing that is bad. I mean, for most people, maybe neutral, but dissociation just as a sort of, again, distance. It's distancing yourself from your own body and your feelings and emotions, and distancing yourself from an experience that you're having that may be intense, or it may just be a state that you frequently exist in, like I do, because there's just so much going on, either in your personal life or collectively. We all experienced a collective trauma in 2020 that we've never really talked about. So it makes sense that most, if not all of us, are in some version of a dissociative state, or at the very least, a state of denial about what's actually going on in life. So, this dissociative state, just dissociation as a strategy, a coping strategy that our minds and our bodies naturally do, exists for a reason, exists with the purpose of survival and a sense of safety, and also as a way to just help us keep moving forward. The time continues to the clock continues to turn, the sun's gonna rise and fall again, like, we still have to figure out a way to get up and go do all the things that we need to do to sustain ourselves and our lives and to keep time moving forward. So, sometimes a little dissociation goes a long way. And sometimes you find yourself in situations that would be really painful, really exhausting, or just really uncomfortable to be fully present and aware and embodied through. So, dissociation exists for a reason. It's a normal strategy. It has its limits, of course, but it's something that we all do. It's just part of being alive. And at the same time, I think it's something that a lot of us feel we are trying to find ways to not do it as much. So that exists. I bring that up again because we've got planets in Libra. Mercury is going to retrograde back into Libra at some point, while a bunch of planets are in Scorpio right next to it. And then Jupiter is going to move back into Gemini, both of those being air signs. Um, I think another way that dissociation shows up that's maybe less psychological and less obvious is in how we are kind of socially conditioned to view ourselves and our bodies. We do objectify ourselves and our bodies in a lot of ways. Especially, I know a lot of women and femme presenting people experience this the most, but men as well. Um, just people in society, like, we are conditioned to see ourselves in certain ways that are is maybe not totally authentic or in alignment with who we actually are and how we actually feel. And it leads us to putting on this sort of performance at times of a version of ourselves that may not be 100% authentic to us, at least every moment of every day. We all have, well, not all, but many of us have jobs. Hey, Karen. Hey, birthday twin. Many of us have jobs, or many of us have roles that we play in society where we do put on sort of a mask, or we start to um we become a bit of perfectionists in a way, and there's a version or an aesthetic or an appearance of ourselves that we try to project out into the world that we want people to see, and that we kind of need people to see in certain instances so that we can get our needs met, and so that we can um present ourselves in a particular way. I think that is another thing we have a complicated relationship with, rightfully so. But especially in capitalism, right? There's a lot of us consuming a lot of things and portraying ourselves in certain ways, so that we are basically selling an image of ourselves a lot of times. That is part of who we are. Yes, it's a part that we can kind of turn on and bring to the forefront. But there are so many other aspects of ourselves that maybe don't get to see the light of day as often because of the roles that we have to play in society. So that dissociation comes in whenever we need to kind of disassociate from certain aspects of ourselves in order for another piece of ourselves to come forward. And generally speaking, I think it can distort our self perception and our sense of self, our self concept. I'm thinking about the Leo and Aquarius axis. It can distort our sense of self so that at some point we look in the mirror at the end of the day and we sometimes don't even recognize ourselves, or even if it's not a way that we're socially conditioned to perform, there may be a way that we feel on the inside that we're just not fully embodying. And then there also just may be like a lot of changes that we've done. I'm definitely guilty of what I'm about to say. We've embodied a lot of change and we've experienced a lot of change. And as time has gone by, if we haven't been present to those changes, you might look in the mirror one day and be like, wow, I look so different than how I looked a couple of years ago, and just not even realize it. I know this happens for people with getting gray hairs or wrinkles. You just one day you're like, wow, I've aged, or gaining weight, losing weight, muscle mass, losing muscle mass, or even just like, for some of our lighter skinned friends, you turn into the shade of kind of a pale lemon in the wintertime versus that really rich tan that you might have had in the middle of the summer. So there are just ways that as time goes on, our lives are full and busy with all these different things. Like, we are having a lot of experiences that we may not be fully present to all the time. And there's just a little bit of distance between us and ourselves in that way until we have a moment to sit down and look and reflect and be like, oh, wow, I'm so different. Things are so different. My surroundings are so different. And I haven't even I don't even have a felt sense of all the change that I've experienced. So that's another way dissociation can show up. So the air of it all can feel a little bit frenetic. It can feel a little bit detached and disembodied at times, but it serves its purpose. On the flip side, then, as I said, we have all this water. Jupiter is in water, Saturn's in water, Mercury, the sun, Mercury and the sun are both in water. Mars is also in water at home in Scorpio. So there's a lot of water right now. And water is something that resists air. Is that right? No, water imposes itself on air. Air resists water. That's the whole reason for the detachment and the separation from your body and your feelings. But then you shift into water and what it feels like to be in under a sky or in a season where there's a ton of water. That means you feel things in your body. You are having more of an embodied experience. And the word I tend to use and that I learned to use for water transits is being affected. So if air is this separation and objectification and just distance and detachment from your body, you're not really feeling yourself be affected by things going on with you, which is why it's so easy for an amount of time to pass by and not even realize that so much time has passed and that so much change has happened internally. Um, so water and the experience of being affected sometimes can feel really intense if you're a person who tends to dissociate a lot, or if you're a person who maybe doesn't live in your feeling body, or if you only live in two or three feelings at most. Being affected is I would say, in its rawest form, is having some level of interoception to where you are somewhat aware of what's going on inside. Again, I don't think that it's necessary or even possible to be fully aware of what's going on internally all the time, or be fully aware of what's going on emotionally for you all the time, because that's a lot. But you would like to be somewhat aware in the sense that that it's like a flexible experience for you. You can fluctuate between, the various feelings and shades that are on a feelings wheel. Um, your feelings exist on a spectrum and on a gradient, and sometimes there's gray areas, and sometimes there's really bright areas and really dull areas. And I don't know, feelings being able to exist as this broad color spectrum, right? But in reality, we only have access to a handful of them, mostly because there's only so many that we have names for in English. Back to the whole air thing. And so a lot of times we might be feeling things that we don't particularly have language for. But this idea in general of water signs and being affected is just that things happen and we respond to them. I've talked about this a lot in preparation for Jupiter in Cancer. And something that I'm noticing, and that seems to be coming up a lot in the kind of wellness, self-help, psychological space, is this conversation about how we've taken regulation and self-soothing and basically turned them into more performances, and even like kind of moral performances at times, and we've turned them into what how do I want to say? We've turned this whole idea of regulation, nervous system regulation, and self-soothing into like, yeah, into these ideals again. We've commodified them and we've made them into these goals or these things to like strive for in an effort to make ourselves appear sane, for lack of a better way to put it. And I use the word sane specifically because, as we know, feelings are often often seen as these like, I don't know, these irrational experiences that we have. So, in the same way that we might use substances to numb, or we might use religion and philosophical practices to bypass, intellectually bypass and circumvent our emotions and our feelings. I think we've started to do, I'm noticing even with myself that we've started to turn regulation and self-soothing into yet another thing where ultimately we're trying to control ourselves and control our feelings and control our bodies. And when I say that, I mean in a way that we've taken it too far, probably like we do everything else. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is this idea of compartmentalizing ourselves so much in service of peace and in service of meeting some kind of ideal that we don't get affected by things, that we are just basically taking ourselves back to square one of saying, I don't get bothered by things, I don't get affected by things. Like, we're trying to use regulation and self-soothing as a form of nonchalance yet again, whenever that's not the point of regulation, self-soothing, or just somatic work in general. So I spent some time this morning listening to a podcast episode by Ali Jolie, which is the same woman who posted a Substack conversation once about, I can't remember what it was about, but she's also a somatic therapist, and she's the one I kind of saw some of these ideas about this morning. And so, where do I want to start? Regulation, this idea of self-regulation, I think what it's actually meant to be, what it's meant to do is, well, I'll say this. I won't even specify that, but I'll say somatic work in general, because of the way we've been conditioned to relate to our bodies, somatic work is not a pleasant experience. I just want to like get that out of the way first, I think, and really allow there to be some permission for that. Like, I think the experience, again, specifically because of the way we've been conditioned to see and relate to our bodies, mostly as capital and as machines to be operated and to perform labor and services and all this other stuff, but also all of the other things that get ingrained into us in society. Like, somatic work, if it's meant to help you feel more embodied, embodied doesn't automatically mean that you're going to feel okay and be okay with everything going on within your body, and it definitely doesn't mean that you're going to feel and be okay with everything going on around you all the time. And I know some of the idea between self-soothing and regulation is to not be reactive, but hear me out. If you are in a situation where your life is being threatened, your peace is being threatened, your safety is being threatened, don't you want to be reactive? Like if you like we've evolved so many different emotional responses for a reason, right? When I talk about you wanting feelings to exist on this gradient and on this spectrum that can go in all kinds of different directions. Those things exist for a reason. They serve survival functions just like dissociation does, or just like anger does, just like the fight or flight feeling you get when you either want to slap somebody in the face or take off running. All of those things exist for a purpose. And while we do live in a society with social scripts and social constructs, like we're still animals at the end of the day. I believe we're still living, breathing beings, and there's a lot going on the inside that's not super black and white, and it's not super clear, and it's not super easy to control. And yet we're starting to get all of these messages from the wellness space that say, yeah, you guys need to learn how to calm down. You need to learn how to be peaceful. You need to learn how to be non-reactive. You need to learn how to be in control of your emotions and da 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 da. Well, haven't we already been doing that? I know marginalized folks, especially, know this. Whichever margin you exist on, there's obviously always been this larger, broader system that's basically telling you to calm down, sit down, and shut up, and to not react. Because if you do react, that could literally be the difference between life or death for you, especially if you're dealing with systems of authority and with institutions. And so, again, all our lives we've been told, especially through the lens of whiteness and white supremacy, to calm down, sit down, and shut up, and to not be reactive. But now we've reached a point socially where, like, it's a lot of shit going on and nobody's reacting. Nobody's responding. Nobody is really doing anything. So I bring all that up to say the whole purpose of somatic work is so that you can feel discomfort again, so that you can feel discomfort. You can feel the signals in your body that are trying to tell you that something is not right. And at the very least, help you build a sort of tolerance to that discomfort. And whenever I talk about tolerance, I don't mean, again, that you just put up with bullshit. I mean that you feel it, and your first response to discomfort isn't dissociate, because dissociating is not feeling either, right? um that tolerance to discomfort, whatever that discomfort means, is so that either you don't totally downregulate and go into that dissociation, depressive, nihilistic place, but also so that you don't totally upregulate into anxiety, which is just another form of freeze, or panic, which is another form of freeze that takes you out of your ability to respond. The point of regulation and somatic work is to tune back into your uncomfortable feelings, or even your good feelings. The purpose of somatic work is just to feel again, and to feel without judgment, because there's so much judgment around feelings, and to just like build capacity and tolerance for emotions to flow through your body at all. But I think we hear that and we think that it means, okay, tolerance to a feeling means that I don't crash out when, or the tolerance to my feelings just means that I feel them, but I don't necessarily need to do something about them. Like, it's ironic to me, knowing that Cancer is a cardinal water sign that would deal with controlling your body, and that we have controlled our bodies into submission instead of action a lot of times. And if we do control our bodies into action, or whatever you want to say, it's in service of capitalism. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Am I too deep? I just feel like I just feel like this is obvious when you say it, but when you really think about the physical experience that you're having, like, we are constantly doing this, the shrinking, the compartmentalizing, the, yes, also trying to stay out of jail. That's what I mean. Like, there's the societal coercion And I'm using these words because Libra. Mercury retrogrades between Scorpio and Libra. Venus is in Libra right now. That's our air for the time being. We are coerced into compliance. And compliance looks like being non reactive, being a little bit dissociated, and bypassing intellectually how we actually feel. Because there are consequences for us having feelings. A great example of this, there's a video of a guy. Now, I don't know if he was on drugs. I don't know if he was on the spectrum. I don't know what was going on, but he was, I want to say in LA somewhere, just dancing in the street. He was shirtless with really short shorts on, had his headphones on, and he's just dancing. And the way he was dancing looked kind of like, it was a little different. People are different. And he wasn't bothering anybody. He wasn't doing anything. He's in a public place. He's not nude. But he's just dancing. And people see this man dancing and they called the cops on him. And he's talking to the cops and he's telling the cops, like, look, I'm not breaking any laws. I'm just dancing. Is that a problem? And they basically they couldn't arrest him for anything because he wasn't disturbing anybody. He's just minding his own business. But then you see all these other people just sitting and speculating about him experiencing this joy and this euphoria in public. So the police didn't arrest him. They kind of just hung out, but he like separated himself from the police and then went off and did his own kind of like regulation experience where he then was doing a lot of stuff that wasn't particularly dancing, but he's trying to move the fear and the anxiety and like this feeling of being spooked about the fact that he was maybe about to be arrested for minding his own fucking business. But that also didn't look pretty, but he just had his own moment of just kind of like moving this energy out. And all these people are just sitting there with their phones out watching him. And it's like, that to me is such a good example of what a social norm or a social construct, what am I trying to say? A social contract of how one should behave in public as a way to not disturb other people with their humanity versus a guy just being in his body in a public way and everybody being uncomfortable with that, including the police who were coming to arrest a man for experiencing maybe a little bit of euphoria. Now, whether or not he was on drugs really doesn't matter to me because he wasn't hurting nobody and he wasn't hurting himself. He was fine. So that just, I don't know. Whenever I talk about like, we're so subdued into this kind of robotic compliance. And then at the same time, constantly being sold things and sold experiences and having to pay for regulatory, I don't know if I want to say that, having to pay for things in order to feel something in a way that's socially acceptable instead of just like, I don't know. Hey Jim, hey Richie, hey Keys. Yeah. So if you're just joining, what I was talking about is what it really means to be embodied and how that's not automatically a comfortable experience. But we've turned somatic work and self-regulation and self-soothing into these things that are supposed to calm us down and make us feel better. And that's not the point. The whole moral of the story today is that that's not the point. The point of somatic work is not so that you feel comfortable. The point of somatic work is so that you feel again, because we've been taught to repress. I could really end the live right there, but obviously I have to talk to you guys a little bit longer. So, what does this mean for where we're at in time? I don't really know, but I get the sense that with SNAP benefits and the government shutdown and healthcare, especially going to shit, just all the regulations and entities that are supposed to be governing us going to shit so rapidly as we said that they would. At some point, we will have to reckon with being uncomfortable. Like, we're already uncomfortable. Let's just say that. We're already uncomfortable. But a lot of people are not feeling that discomfort, whether that's on purpose or that's because they have enough resources to numb, or they're in a survival state of sorts, whatever that feels like. So, yeah, a lot of scary shit going on constantly, but we're not really feeling it. And when I say we're not really feeling it, I mean the there what am I trying to say? People are going to therapy, people are getting on um medications, people are drinking, using substances, consuming art, whatever. Like, we have so many vices that we can lean on to basically avoid confronting the reality that, like, we need to do something. And there's a level of this, like, learned helplessness with all of this too, that's just kind of like, well, I don't know what we do. I don't know what we can do. I don't know what we should do. If I were to just think of astrology specifically in this moment, and I see what y'all are saying in the chat, I'm gonna come back to it. But if I were to just think about the astrology, there's a loss of control, or just a feeling that we have no control. There's uncertainty, so much uncertainty for what day to day, what's going to happen next, how am I supposed to survive? And then there's the experience of abandonment, whether that's the self abandonment in all of this, of not having the authentic emotional expression, or just the physical abandonment of, again, nobody is coming to save us. The people who are supposed to be responsible for us are not being responsible for us. And in order to survive this system, I just have to comply and set my whatever feelings aside in the meantime. So that form of self abandonment as well. And my purpose in saying all of this is not to say there is something we should or shouldn't be doing, but it's really just advocating for, in this moment, your right to feel your feelings about it. And that there are going to be moments where sometimes it just doesn't fucking feel good, and it's just not going to feel good. Um I hate being the person to say this, cuz it sucks to hear, and it sucks to be on the receiving end of and to be experiencing, but sometimes, like, it just is going to suck for a minute, you know? And you should be allowed to say that. You should be allowed to express that to people without them immediately jumping in and trying to, oh, well, it's gonna be okay. Oh, well, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and God's will, and blah 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 blah. All these are just like empty platitudes that are just like immediately rushing in with these empty platitudes, or with these techniques, and with these self-help books, and with these sermons, and these podcasts, and all this information. It's just like, damn, can I just, like, crash out for a second? Can I just, like, be mad that, like, shit is really shit right now? Can I say that? Is it allowed? Do I have to immediately self-soothe and meditate and regulate and just, like, push it all down, or just, like, drink it away, smoke it away, sex it away, like what Solange said in Cranes in the Sky? Like, sometimes it's just gonna hurt, man, and it just need to let it burn. Can I just feel my pain in this moment? Yes, exactly, KJ. Can I just feel my pain? We don't let ourselves do that. We don't let other people do that, especially in our presence. Like, we want to push people into, oh, you need to be in therapy. And listen, before y'all start, y'all know I love therapy. It's my life's work. Okay. I love counseling. I love meditation. I love the woo-woos. I love it all. Okay. And sometimes people just are trying to have a feeling. It's been so long. It's been so much going on that, yeah, maybe sometimes You just gonna feel how you feel. So I feel like the Scorpio of it all for me right now is like letting it come up even though it's not pretty. And then when we retrograde back into Libra and back into Gemini, then we talk about it. Can we have an honest conversation about it? Have an honest conversation about how in November of 2025 and 2026 20 it's 2025, right? November and December of 2025, a lot of people are in pain. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of people are struggling to survive, and a lot of people are dying still. It hurts. It does not feel good. The way we live our lives does not feel good. It's not sustainable. And we should be allowed to say it without immediately having to rush into self-soothing and without immediately immediately having to rush into regulating and immediately having to rush into all this stuff. Like sometimes your body is just going to respond how it responds. And yes, sometimes that does look like dissociation. Sometimes that does look like shut down and freeze. And sometimes it does look like just straight up losing your shit for a second. And it just be like that sometimes. I had somewhere else I was going to go with this, but I guess the mushrooms wanted me to get that out. But, a lot of it is like people need to feel that sense of urgency because we're not feeling it. Um so circling back, I feel like I keep drifting away from my point, but circling back to the purpose of somatic work and the purpose of regulation, and what its original intention was is to bring you back into your body so that you can assess for yourself if there's some shit that you're not okay with and there's some shit that you need more of that you're not getting enough of. If there are some things that need to change based on these feelings that are coming up that weren't allowed to come up before, um once you allow those feelings to come forward, what does that open up for you? I think a way that regulation could actually be more helpful than to just subdue us constantly is to again move you from a state of dissociation and freeze and into a place of action. It doesn't mean that you feel better. In fact, you might feel more feelings and they might feel more intense because again, the whole purpose of dissociation is so that it kind of mutes it all and you're able to just kind of move forward. But if you're going to go through all this effort to become more embodied, it's so that you're the next thing that you do whenever it comes to responding or even just feeling in general. Like I think the way that she put it this morning that was super helpful for me in terms of the Scorpio of it all is that there's again the socially, culturally, whatever way of appropriateness and how to respond and feel about something. And then there's just the way you authentically feel about something. Oh, what's a good example? Okay, with like families of origin. This is one everybody can relate to some extent. There's the social script, cultural script or narrative of what a family is supposed to look like and how you're supposed to behave within your family. And that, blood is thicker than water, which is not even a good reference because of what that actually means is a whole different thing. Had to do with cult shit, I think. But anyways, I digress. This whole cultural script of what family means and how you're supposed to behave with your family and how you're supposed to treat your family and all this other stuff. And then there's your authentic experience of what it looks like to be in that family with them people and how they treat you. And those two things don't usually go together. That's the Libra and the Scorpio being in adjacent signs and how adjacent signs are the least like each other. Like, yes, there's this idea that we're supposed to be one big happy nuclear family in the United States and in the West. And then there's the reality of these people don't respect me. These people don't listen to me. These people be passing my boundaries. These people take and take and take and never give back. They talk down to like there's all of these different things of what's actually happening within your family unit. And sometimes you're like, and I'm just supposed to sit here and take this? I'm just supposed to sit here and, well, that's my family and they don't mean it, and like rationalize all these excuses for their behavior when the authentic response is to be like, girl, fuck you. But that's frowned upon. But the anger that comes up when people are disrespecting you to your face and passing your boundaries is supposed to be, girl, fuck you. Hello? Like, that's an authentic response. Now, this sounds all good and well, but let me tell y'all, do y'all know how many times, and I'm sure y'all know it, you talk to your friends, how many times people, especially like in the therapy world, in the client space, they're like trying to come and talk to you about the way that their family members are towards them, and start immediately just making up, not making up, but just saying all of these things about, well, that's my mom, like she suffered all of this stuff and like she had to jump through all these hoops to provide for us, and my dad, he worked long hours, and even though all he did, he came home and he drank, but like I understood because he had so much pressure on him to hold up the family. Like they just go into all these stories and all these narratives, and like that's all true, I'm sure, and cool and good and part of their experience, but how do you feel? I'm the one that's going to be in the chair talking to you, asking you, but how do you feel? Because it's like people have this idea that how they feel is wrong to feel that way. They feel guilty for feeling you are feeling a feeling and feeling guilty about admitting it out loud, because that is, again, it doesn't fit into this social script that we have of how you're supposed to behave and how you're supposed to respond and how you're supposed to let all of that stuff go, because this is your family. It's your family. It's like, okay, well, if it's my family, then aren't we supposed to be a little bit more kinder to each other than what it is I'm actually experiencing? So like people will feel bad to just be honest about how they feel. Myself included. I also do this. I'm not exempt, but I'm yelling on behalf of all of us. So my Scorpio, whenever I'm in the coaching seat or in the astrotherapist seat and I'm talking to people and I'm hearing all of the ways that they are trying to ultimately make themselves feel okay with something that they're not okay with at their core, I'm going to sit here and say, look, you're not a bad person for being mad at these people who are treating you this way. You are not a bad person for having feelings, friend. And the feelings that you're having are not bad. They're just feelings. And I don't say that to minimize them, but it's just like they're feelings. They're already in the room with us. They're not going away. They're here. They're trying to come forward, and you keep saying, "Well, no, 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 no. Regulate, self-soothe. No, no, no. I'm cool." Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? I know why, but giving yourself permission to be like, that shit was fucked up. It pisses me off every time. Like the holidays are coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas, you know what I'm saying? Like about to have to go sit. Some people are about to have to go sit around the dinner table with a MAGA ass family and act like they're not pissed off at the fact that probably them and their MAGA ass family about to lose healthcare. Hello? I'm just supposed to sit here and be cool and cordial with you when y'all keep making these decisions and parroting these ideas and these philosophies and all this other stuff that's like supposed to make me feel okay with what's obviously not okay right now. And then even if it's people who do agree with you politically, like I'm using this as an example, but even if it is people who agree with you politically, but they're liberals, Jesus Christ, and they want you to just kind of like, well, in 4 years, we're just going to have to make sure everybody votes. We're just going to have to make sure everybody votes in the next election because we're definitely having that. Hello? You don't know that. We are in a different dimension right now. We are in a different timeline. The timeline where we had even the potential for a functioning democracy, if you even want to believe we ever really did, Definitely didn't in Texas. But that ship sailed a long time ago. Several decades ago. That ship sailed. So why are we even talking about that? It's time to move on. We need to be in the present, where the man in charge right now already has Trump 2028 hats printed out that he's handing out, and you got his other people coming on mainstream media broadcast networks talking about, yeah, he's gonna be elected again. Don't even worry about it. We've already worked that out. They're telling you explicitly what's going on, and people are just kind of sitting here and be like, nah, regulate, self-soothe. I just need to tune out. I just need to get off social media for a little while, and I just need to turn off the news, and I just need to just put my little headphones in and listen to my little music, my little Taylor Swift album. Go put on my little American Eagle jeans and go buy my little merch. I just need to go out to my little restaurant and eat indoors and go pay $15 for a mixed beverage. I just need to lock in. I just need to bundle up. I have a joke right now with my lover, but I just need to bundle up. I just need to bundle up, guys. I just need to put my little hat on, my little coat. It's cold outside, getting cold outside. I just need to go put on my little coat. Just need to bundle up. Just need to get all cozy and comfortable. If I can just get all cozy and comfortable, I don't have to be affected by all this going on outside of me that I can't do anything about anyway. I just need to bundle up. That's not even what the joke was, but that's what the joke's about to be now. I just need to bundle up. I'm so high right now. You guys. Woo! Shit, I'm sweating. But y'all feel me? I know y'all feel me. It's just, I just need to find a way to be okay. And that's not even fair. I won't even say to be okay, but I just need to find a way to get through this moment as comfortably as possible. And again, I don't blame you. That is by design. They want to sell us solutions for all of this discomfort so that they can profit off of it and not have to change anything. We can continue to suffer because we're going to pay them money to relieve our suffering. Ain't that a bitch? Who was I listening to? Was that this morning? Or was it the other day? I think it was a TikTok I saw the other day of a therapist talking about how damn, what did she say? I can't remember what the beginning of the video was about, but it was this idea of like, we've gone too far in the direction of self-care. I think it might have been about self-care probably or something, but it was about this whole idea of like, boundaries and everything else, and like giving from the whole, you can't give from an empty cup, and I need to like make sure I'm okay before I like help everyone else thing. And these are all things that I do believe in. And this person in her TikTok was kind of challenging me, and I'm sure many of us, to say that like, I think we forget that a lot of the things that actually would help us feel better include being of service to other people. And this is something they used to say in my relationship school a lot too, actually, is that like, there will be times that you come into a session dealing with your own shit and like, or something else going on in life, but when you intentionally decide like, okay, for now I'm not going to think about this, I'm going to channel this energy into helping this person who's here right in front of me, that ends up being regulation. Wait, I don't know, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Deb. The process of setting your own shit aside to help someone else ends up being regulatory in and of itself. That is a form of co-regulation, I guess. I don't say that in the clinical sense, but just the action of helping someone else, even when you're going through it yourself, ends up making you feel better because you're not just kind of sitting and stewing in your bullshit. You're like actually going out and, again, making a physical difference in someone else's life. And through having a part in that, it also helps you work out your own stuff, you know? So it takes you out of this whole, like, I need to go sit and be in my um individualized, I need to go be with myself. I need to go consume things and do self-care instead of being with my community. Like, if you're feeling run down, maybe the thing you need is care from someone else. Or if you're feeling run down and then you go, I mean, I don't know. I just think she said more things. I don't need to say them again here. But it's just this idea of like how caring for others helps us care for ourselves too. I know an example. So when my dog, I was going to say dogs, but I just have one now. When she comes and stays with me, I had a week of just a bunch of shit last week going on. Mars was scoring my Mars in real time. So I was exhausted, but I had my dog at home to take care of. And something that kind of kept me grounded in all of it was knowing that she was here by herself all day long while I have to do all these other things. And when my main focus was I need to get home and be with her, and then when I'm with her, I need to actually like be present with her and what she needs and take her out for her walks, like staying responsible for her meant that I had to care for myself in the process of caring for her. So it wasn't like I need to take care of myself first and then I can take care of her. Because that sounds an awful lot like what people say about how you need to be whole and healed and you can't love yourself before you love someone else. Da 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 da. Like all these things are meant to be like these kind of synergistic, they feed off of each other type things because we are relational beings. Relational beings. Caring for each other is what helps us care for ourselves. Because, and I know, and I know I've probably said this the wrong way in the past as well, so I'm holding myself accountable here too. But I think I said on a previous live, even though I felt kind of weird about it, that like you can't be a good community member if you aren't caring for yourself. Well, that's because when you know you have to care for other people and you have to show up for them, you have to take care of yourself in the process. So that looks like, for me, when it came to just caring for my dog, I had to go to bed on time because she needed to go to bed on time and she's going to make me. She's going to be like, hey, we need to wrap this up. It's getting late. And I know that if I don't go to bed on time, that when she comes to wake me up at 6:45, 7 o'clock in the morning on a weekend, I'm going to be too tired. And I'm going to be like, no, let's just sleep in. And then she's going to be all thrown off of her routine. That's not fair to her when I'm responsible for her. Nope. I need to take my ass to bed. I need to wake myself up on time. And we need to go for our little walks. I need to let her all the way out. I know I'm going to have to go down the stairs and walk all the way across to let her out. And sometimes if I can't do it, then I'm going to call somebody else to do it. So there was a time this week where I had too much going on. And I was like, okay, well, instead of making her just sit here and suffer, how about I call up somebody else? So I called my lover. I said, hey, would you mind going and checking on her at lunch? Because I have to go to I have another appointment and I'm not going to be able to fit it into my lunch hour and do all this stuff. So if you could go check on her, that'd be great. So she went and checked on her for me. Fantastic. Took something else off my plate so that when I got home, I still was able to take her out and do all the things I needed to do for her. So it's like, now granted, the exception being like there are things that we can't do for other people, whether that's caring for them in a particular way that they need to care for themselves, or just a type of care that we are not equipped to provide. Like, right, there's obviously nuance and exceptions to these rules, but generally speaking, sometimes that's part of it too. Sometimes the caring for yourself and caring for others thing, like, it can look all kinds of different ways, right? But the idea is, I think the idea and the point of the retrograde, the Jupiter retrograde at least, is that care and what we think care is maybe is different than what we think it is. We're talking about Jupiter after all. So if we hang out in Cancer for a little while and we see all the shit happening around us with people losing access to care, then maybe that's going to make us say, okay, well, if we can't get care the way that we used to get care through the government or whatever, then we're going to have to figure out another way, because we can't just let people go without care. Like, we got to care for people somehow. So we're gonna have to figure out a way. And then I think I've been saying with all of these Cancer and Gemini retrogrades that the brief moment in Cancer, and then the same thing I think with Scorpio and Libra, it's all coming together now. Same thing with Scorpio and Libra is that the moment where the body is very loud in all of these ways happens, and we all have to turn and look at it as one does at a retrograde and say, oh, something's happening here. We need to respond to this because it's loud, it's immediate, it's urgent, it's serious, it's happening. We're feeling the effects, we're being affected by it. Then the planets move back into air sign to say, okay, we need to like figure out a strategy. We need to figure out a system. We need to learn some things. We need to learn some new skills, maybe. We need to do some things so that when these planets go back into water signs, we know how to respond. We know what's going on because we've taken in the information and we've had the conversations we needed to have to meet this need, because that need is going to come back around and we're going to have to respond to it. So, bringing it all back down. Self-soothing and regulation, somatic work, with the intention of feeling the thing, not to subdue it, not to control it, to let it come up authentically. Granted, some of that is going to be, because again, this is not a perfect world. Some of that is going to be feeling it in ways that are appropriate and safe, but feeling it nonetheless, rather than dissociating from it, or rather than completely ignoring it, or being in denial about it, or rationalizing it, intellectually bypassing it. Just let it come up. And I think, and the other thing I want to say, is it the last thing? I don't know. We'll see. But the other thing I want to say about that, the whole letting it come up, sit with your feelings thing. Like, what was I going to say? I kind of lost it. Oh. For people who like to do and who like to figure things out and solve and fix, somatic work is very uncomfortable because there is no fixing or solving. So that kind of brings me back to this whole thing of like regulation, right? Self-regulation or whatever, self-soothing. Like sometimes people approach both of those things as, I need to fix this feeling or I need to not feel this feeling or whatever. Again, it becomes a whole thing of like pushing it away, pushing the experience. Like the real intimacy of somatic work is just having the experience with yourself at all. I remember when I started doing somatic therapy, I was so in my fix-it brain at the time, because I wanted relief, but I was so in my fix-it brain at the time that the idea that I would sit with this woman and let her ask me questions that are going to make me feel things, and then we just sit and feel things. Like there is a session where she took me through, and there's some weird exercises depending on the therapist that you see. Mine was kind of focused on I think we did more internal family systems type stuff, parts work. Where she's asking me these questions that are really kind of abstract and open-ended, but they're questions that aren't really meant to be answered with like logic and story. They're just meant to like, it kind of felt like doing abstract artwork with your feelings, because she would ask me questions and then she would say like, okay, bring up a topic, and I'm talking through it because I like to yap, as y'all know, sitting here listening to me for an hour. And then immediately direct me into my body. Okay, where do you feel that as you speak about it? And I'm like just like sit and feel. I'm like, okay. I feel it in my throat. And I feel a little bit of heaviness behind my eyes. Okay. Is there like any texture or smell or any other kind of like sensation present with that feeling? Does it feel hot? Does it feel cold? Does it have a color? And I'm like, does it have a color? What are you talking about? But I just go with it. And I'm like, yeah, it feels hot. It feels tight, like constricting and maybe even a little itchy. I don't know. And then the feeling behind your eyes, like, what does that feel like? Whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I'm really not even thinking about what I was just talking about. Now I'm just sitting with these feelings. And then she's like, if those feelings had a voice, what would they say? Is there something that they need? And I'm like, really sitting with it. She's like, are there any images that come up, any pictures, like just what comes up whenever you really feel into those sensations and those textures and qualities of that feeling? Without thinking, just like first thing that comes to your mind. And I remember there was a time that I was sitting and I was thinking about like, I was like, it feels like there's two small children inside of me. One of them is a little girl sitting on a curb, just like crying. And one of them is like an older boy kind of caring for her, but also being really angry at everybody else. And I don't know who these kids are. Are they me? Are they someone else? I don't know. Just like, wow, like what conversation are they having? And I don't remember what I said after that, but I just remember this profound experience of like empathy for this little girl and for this teenage boy living inside of me who are like having this conversation and trying to care for each other and just trying to figure out what to do. And I just like sat there and cried. And she told me to like sit and hold myself in a way that felt good and just cry and be comfortable. And I was like, is this it? Is this all that we're doing today? And just she just let me have that experience and asked me what I thought about it afterwards. And I was like, I'm not gonna hold you. That was really weird. But it felt really validating for some reason to just like sit and be with them kids. I don't know who they are. And to just cry. And then she was like, all right, well, that's all we have to do today. And I was like, that's it? We're not gonna like unpack that. She's like, no, maybe we can talk about it next time, or we'll check in next time. But yeah, strong work today. Take care of yourself. Do something that feels good, and we'll reconvene. And I left that session being like I felt the shift, but I just didn't really know what to do with it afterwards. But basically, like, yeah, it's not logical, it's not rational. You just kind of having an experience with yourself and letting someone else witness you have that experience and kind of just letting it be whatever it is. And then find meaning in it or you don't. That's not really the point. It just is to have an experience and to let some feelings come forward and some things that maybe you don't have language for it to come forward, and not try to fix it or solve it or regulate it away. Just have the experience. And that experience alone, and many of the other experiences I had with her, just increased my tolerance for that feeling. So that if I was in a situation, like, for example, another example, one of the first times that she had me sit with my anxiety, terrifying. I didn't realize, because I thought me and anxiety was like this, but I didn't realize how often I was having anxiety and dissociating from it. It was just like happening over here in my body, and I was over here just kind of being like, I know that's happening over there, but I'm not going to look at it. And there were a few times that she had me just sit with like actually feeling the feeling of anxiety, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I'm like, girl, what? But sure enough, I didn't have a heart attack. It got really intense for a moment and it felt really strong. And then at some point it just kind of stopped. And I was like, oh, you mean this feeling isn't going to kill me? So I needed that when there was a moment when I was on the plane coming back from Hawaii. I know I talk about this a lot, but there was a moment when I was coming back on the plane from Hawaii. So I'd already done the first 8-hour trip that I pretty much dissociated through. I did my best, guys, but I couldn't. But the one coming back, I not only was anxious all night, I was like sobbing the next morning, just like couldn't stop crying. And then when I finally got on the plane, we were sitting just boarding, and I almost probably almost legit had a heart attack, if not a panic attack. I was wearing my Apple Watch, and my Apple Watch was like, "Hey, your pulse is like 150, but you're sitting. What's going on?" And I had a moment where I was like, I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna have a heart attack. I'm gonna throw up. I don't know what's gonna happen." And I'm just sitting in this chair, and I was like, "Okay, it doesn't have to be this way. Actually, it doesn't have to be this way. Actually, feel it." It's like, wow, my heart is really racing. And I'm sitting on this plane and it's going to take off soon. And I'm sitting here feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack. So I was just like, all right, well, let me just feel it. And it was very scary. And then at some point it passed. It passed. And then the plane started taxiing. And by the time we were up in the air, I was like, okay, cool. And I just like kind of watched my little show. And the flight there was fine. Barely any, if at all, like barely any, if any, turbulence on the way there. On the way back, we flew through so many storms the entire time. And I was just kind of like riding the turbulence out the whole time because I'd already had my panic attack. I'd already had the panic attack. So from that point, it was just kind of like, all right, I'd given up control at that point. I was just like, this plane's going to do what it's going to do. Now, some of that I do think is because I'm more conditioned for chaos than I am for peace. So the cooler thing would have been if I could have not panicked the entire time the first time. But alas, what actually happened was I still didn't respond to turbulence the way that I normally do. And I experienced turbulence for 7 hours straight. And I was just kind of like, okay. And then I landed, and then, all that stuff came up for me to deal with later. But ever since learning how to just like feel the feeling instead of dissociate from it, I've honestly, truly been able to ride the waves out of those feelings a lot quicker than what I used to do before, which is just tune out from it. And it just sits there and bubbles and festers for hours and hours and hours until I'm just too exhausted to feel it anymore. It's like there's a way of turning towards it and embracing that sensation and allowing it to be in the room with me and say like, hey, I know you're here because we're freaking the fuck out about some stuff that's out of our control. And I understand that. Thank you for your help and for trying to protect me. And it'll be like, oh, cool. You know that I'm here? Then maybe you don't need me. But maybe you do need me. And that's the point. The point of the somatic work is so that the feeling comes forward, and then the feeling comes forward. And then maybe you have more agency because that feeling came forward. Or maybe you just realize maybe that feeling doesn't need to be in the room and it kind of sees itself out. But I think we do too much in trying to make it do something or not do something. It's the forcing of it all, right? Forcing yourself to be with discomfort as a way of like pushing through because you're strong and this and that versus like acknowledging the discomfort and being with it. Like, okay, I'm having an experience right now and this doesn't feel very good. Like, I don't know. I think because it's not an intellectual exercise, it's hard to explain what somatic work is actually supposed to do because you're just supposed to feel through it. And then you talk about it afterwards. But I don't know. So much of it is just like letting yourself have the experience in a moment and just letting and that's it. Letting yourself have the experience in the moment. Let the feeling come forward. Cuz I don't know. I mean, and maybe this is doing the same thing, but I don't know, there's just something about like letting the experience come forward in your own body and you feeling it doesn't necessarily look like expressing it out for everybody else to deal with. Sometimes it is just letting yourself have a feeling. And that kind of makes sense to me, right? Like if the whole like if we think about Capricorn as repression, or we think about Aries as like brute force your way through, we think about Cancer as like spilling it all out for everybody else, and we think about Libra as rationalizing all of it, like maybe the whole point of all of it is just to let it come forward within you and acknowledging that it's there. And then you let yourself have that experience with yourself for what, 90 seconds max, when it's going to peak at 90 seconds. And then the world opens up, whether that's your internal world that opens up or the world around you opens up. But there's just something about knowing that this wave is about to crash down and just kind of letting it wash over you. Like maybe there is no and then. Maybe it's just it washes over you. Because that's the thing that we were afraid of the most. What's going to happen if I actually let this feeling in the room? And the truth is, nothing has to happen if you let that feeling in the room. Sometimes you just open the door and it comes in. It makes itself known. You say hello, you greet it, and then it's in the room. So what? So what? And the gag is, it was already in the room. It was already in the room. It was already there. It's just it was here, and you were like this. La 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 la. No, how about this? Hi, nice to meet you. Want to hang out for a bit? And then it says, yeah, I'm gonna hang out for a bit. And then it hangs out for like 90 seconds. When it comes into the room and it spills all out everywhere. And then it spills out everywhere. Now what? Not even now what? So what? Everybody take a deep breath. That felt so good right now. I want to invite you to do the same. Anyway, I don't know what I just said. I'm going to read the chat real quick. Because y'all said so many things. I think I just talked for an hour and 15 minutes straight, and I don't know what y'all said. I left my body for a minute, and now I'm back. Hey, how's it going? my brain is like hmm. um the just record response was quite literally a Black Mirror episode. Yeah, with the man dancing. People having to create their own systems of care because this is an abandonment project. Constant discomfort just leads to habituation as survival mechanism. Also true. All the billionaires and Trumpers building bunkers are afraid of people waking up. Let me go Dark Phoenix for a moment. For just a moment. Damn, so true. I literally tell people to let me feel my pain in this moment. Yes. We do need permission. Like, hey, don't do that. Just sit. You sit over there and just be with this feeling I'm presenting, because you probably feel it too. But you avoiding feeling the feeling I'm feeling right now in yourself is dysregulating me further. So That's something I'm personally really bad at. I don't it's not that I don't empathize. My problem is I feel like I empathize too well, and then I internalize it when I don't need to do that. I can just feel it with you, you know? Feel it with you with the knowledge that this is your experience and I'm taking part in it with you. I don't have to take it on as my own. That's not helpful to you either. Um, yeah, toxic positivity makes me furious as well. I needed this last week talking to my parent about religion, but this is quite affirming. Ah, yes. Definitely channeling. I know I had to just take my body back. I'm like, "All right, thanks. Thanks for that. Enough." And faith fucked the family, so now what? Exactly. I was just giving my partner permission to feel some type of way about their family pushing them away instead of supporting them. Yes. Ooh. Hey, Bonnie, when my mother tries to gaslight me into talking to this or that person in the family who mistreated me. Because, like, for what? And motherfuckers will try to gaslight you, but you really got to be in that truth and do. Yeah. They're going to get that Bernie. People really think that there will come someday like the Supreme Court did not just uphold his request to starve people. Yeah. All the systems in place are just in service of capital. And the sooner people realize that, and the problem is, I think a lot of people do realize that. And I think a lot of people agree with it is the problem. So it's not just that people are ignorant and that people don't understand. Some people do very much understand and they want to be a part of it. That's the problem. What you do about that, I don't know. I think we have to create systems that actively combat it because there are simply going to be people who go to war for that shit, literally. Excuse me. There are people who are going to go to war for and on behalf of these systems and structures, knowing exactly how they function, which is why changing people's minds is not always effective. You have to literally build something different and it function better and more people get behind that than to just tell people why this thing they believe in is bad. They don't care. They want to be bad. They want to be in it. They want it to happen that way. They will sacrifice themselves on behalf of it. So there's no saving that. You just got to create something else. Bro already said he don't care what the Constitution says, and does, and does. Fostering kittens saved me from a crash out tour. So true. It's the reminder of what really matters. And it's grounding in a way that is still it's grounding in a way that isn't it's not bypassing. You know what I mean? Like we just do so much escaping because it's convenient and because our society in the US specifically is literally designed to distract. The whole point of this whole thing is to distract you. To distract and extract is the whole point. Like it's really not even that much deeper. It just is. Distract you from the fact that we're extracting and to make you feel comfortable with your own demise. That's the whole point. There are places around the world who are not doing that. And that's part of the reason they're at war with us. You know what I'm saying? Caring for others is self-care. And yes, there's always exceptions. Nuance is implied. I've never felt more love for myself than when I spend time with my community caring for them. So true. And it builds trust and it builds intimacy in a way that obviously we're uncomfortable with it in a society that is constantly weaponizing our dependence on it against us. I was supposed to say something about that today. What was it? I knew I should have written it down whenever I thought about it because it was during the week. What was it? Oh, yeah, I guess this is pretty straightforward still, but this whole Libra Cancer square situation that we're in right now is very much like, okay, we're only going to give you this thing that you need if you do this thing that we need you to do. That's coercion, by the way. Yeah, we'll give you this thing you need, but you need to do this for us first. Coercion. The government, current admin, I think the government in general, obviously, but the current admin especially, I think they are this moment of letting the government shut down and letting people lose their benefits, whether that's healthcare or food, like bringing people to their knees to say, hey, you need to get on board with what we got going on if you want to survive. And they will do and dangle and give out whatever little things they need to give out along the way to make sure that we continue to comply. I think I just saw something today that Trump was talking about potentially, I shouldn't say his name because the bots will hear me, but Orange Man was talking about giving out another $2,000 stimulus check situation. And people, y'all know people ate that shit up the first time he did it. So of course he's gonna do it again. And that $2,000 ain't no money. That ain't no money. When you already got to pay the poverty tax and you get $2,000, what is $2,000 gonna do? Besides give you that temporary relief and dopamine hit that makes you say, okay, this gave us something. Crumbs. Like $2,000. And that's not to say $2,000 don't go a long way for some people. It does. But what people forget is that when you are in poverty, your debt, you have so much debt. $2,000 ain't gonna do nothing for you. It's gonna help you in the short term, that short term immediate relief. But at some point, child, you still got we need what they say in the Bible, forgive us of our debts or whatever. Debt is a sin. Oh, not debt's a sin. Um 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 the people who whatever, never mind. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Scratch that. I'm gonna just cut that out the video later. But y'all know what I mean. Um the people need debt relief. The people need true financial freedom. And then yeah, they're gonna use it to justify inflation again. Like that shit. Anyway, my point is, I don't remember what my point was. My point is coercion. Um the government setting people up for coercion. Or the government is coercing people into compliance, is what I mean to say. And doing so in a way by quite literally making us beg for it and do things that we would not do normally in order to get our needs met. So this is just the beginning, child. Mutual aid is one of the roadmaps. Telling people what to do is not the same as care. Very, very true. Thank you guys. Calling me brave. Trying to dissociate from my panic attacks made it so much worse and felt like that for hours instead of it passing within like 30 minutes. Quite literally ended me up in the hospital. Yeah. I know it seems counterintuitive, but it's like I don't really want to say this out loud because I have real OCD. So I don't want to cause more problems for myself. So I'm not going to say that. But there are things that our body does that's involuntary for a reason. Like because our body sometimes will overcome our will or whatever else and be like, listen, bitch, you need to sit down for a second because this needs to happen, and then make the thing happen that it needs to do to regulate for itself. And you kind of just gotta let it and surrender to it because you whatever you are trying to do in this front part of your brain is not going to be as healthy for you as whatever your body naturally does to preserve its own life. So let it, you know what I mean? So that's kind of really what I'm talking about when I'm saying just let the feelings in the room. Like feeling feelings is regulation. Repressing feelings is not regulation. Suppressing feelings is not regulation. Rushing through intellectually bypassing the spiritually bypassing your feelings is not regulation. Feeling the feeling, letting the feeling into the room and acknowledging it is regulation. Seems like the ultimate practice in somatic work. That is so brave. Let him cook, yes. So funny that something we do to avoid feeling uncomfortable feelings actually makes us feel uncomfortable for way longer than we have to, when in reality, the wave crashing will probably pass pretty quickly. Yes. And that really applies to so many things in life. Executive dysfunction, but with your feelings. Well, and to your point, you know, that's what makes it hard for some people. But yeah, and this is the whole thing. When I talk about cardinal signs in general, remember how I listed out all the different ways that Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn like deal with their feelings? And you know what? That validates so much. But I said this a long time ago, and this was a thought out of my own brain. Was that, yeah, a lot of times we're trying to control something outside of us to control how we feel on the inside. When in reality, when we relinquish control, that just means that a lot of feelings have to come forward that we probably don't really want to feel. But we like we all do this in our own ways about our own things, but we all kind of compartmentalize and our lives. I read this in a book. Um, the neurotic tendencies that we have are us just kind of compartmentalizing around certain things, feelings, experiences, emotions from our past, whatever it is that we haven't quite yet learned how to deal with and confront. And so we orient ourselves around not dealing with or not feeling this thing. And again, sometimes you're just not in the place to go there with yourself, and that's also okay. Like, I want to make that abundantly clear that, again, like I said in the beginning, the dissociation and the repression and all that exists because you maybe are not in a space or in a circumstance yet where it's actually safe to feel your feelings. And those survival mechanisms exist for a reason, right? And so there's also something to be said for letting that be someone's truth as well. Like, everybody don't it may not be time for everybody to be in their feeling their feelings era. It may not. But if you are a person who feels resourced enough that you're engaging with these self-help tools and practices at all, which would imply to me that you are in a position to let your feelings come through, then yeah, um, what you're supposed to be doing is feeling the feelings, not um, finding more ways to avoid them. That's really what I mean to say. If you're resourced enough to be seeking the practice in the first place, then cool. But if you're not resourced enough to even really be like doing all that yet, there's no shame in, when it's time for you to do that. I think the interest and the curiosity and the openness to it will be there. If it's not time for you to be doing that, it's just not time. And it's probably safer for you to be doing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So making space for that nuance as well. But yeah, plastic, plastic off the feelings sofa. Is it bad that breathing deeply makes me feel weird sometimes? No, I don't think there's a judgment around that at all. I think there's maybe some information there. When you say weird, what does that mean? And you don't have to tell me here. We don't have to unpack it, but I'm just curious, like, what does weird feel like? Because for me, sometimes um it feels it loosens up stuff. Like, here's the other thing about somatic work, and it can be something as simple as like getting a massage, right? I got a massage the other day, but instead of getting a usual like deep tissue massage like I've been getting, I decided to get myofascial release because it's supposed to be more gentle pressure that doesn't just like further traumatize your muscles. So if I'm a person who's already like this, and it would make you think that someone needs to really get in there and again force my muscles to release, but they're not going to do that. All I do is force. Okay, all I do is force and push and stress. I didn't need that. So I was like, well, let me try a myofascial release, and way different experience. She was very gentle with me the entire time, and I kept thinking like, I don't know if this is going to do what it needs to do. But about 30, maybe 45 minutes in, no, it was only an hour. So probably like 15 minutes in more realistically. She was making me breathe the entire time while she was using very gentle pressure in the sticking points because she knows that if they're sticking points, my body is already contracting around it. So it doesn't make sense if my body is already protecting, being really protective of my entire shoulder joint. It's not going to make sense for her to just go in there with really heavy pressure and make it hurt more. Why would that work? Why would my body be like, ah, yes, pain. This makes me want to release the tension that we're carrying around protecting this thing that maybe needs to be protected or maybe doesn't need to be protected. I don't know. I've never had an MRI. I could have some strained some micro tears. I could have some micro tears in my ligaments, or I could have it could be some stuff going on in my shoulder joint, my hip joints that I'm not conscious of, but that my brain is like, yeah, if we do a little too much in this area, that thing gonna rip. So we need to protect it. Right? We need to compensate for that in all these other ways. That's basically what your body's doing. So it's not going to make sense for someone to go in there with a method that's going to be painful so that my brain thinks, yeah, this is fine. We can relax. No. So she goes in with very gentle pressure until it all kind of relaxes and makes me breathe out. Send breath there and breathe out because my breath is the only thing I can control to let my mind and my body know that it's safe. Really to let my body know that it's safe because my mind doesn't think it's safe regardless. But my body, deep breathing with the gentle pressure at some point did actually relax. And I know that I relaxed because I wasn't really like consciously in the room anymore. I was in this like that theta state that they kind of talk about where I wasn't really asleep, but I wasn't really awake. I was in an in-between space. And that actually allowed her to get in there and apply a little bit more pressure, but still, again, not so much that it hurt, just enough that there was a little bit of bracing at first, but then it was like, oh, okay, we can relax here. Your body is doing stuff like that all the time with physical tension. So yeah, there are times where breathing sometimes makes me feel more lightheaded. There's sometimes where deep breathing makes me feel more anxious because I'm starting to relax and my body's like, wait, is it safe to relax? Do we know? Ah! And then it's like, oh, so we're not getting chased by a tiger. It's okay to let go a little bit. Okay, we'll let go. It just feels a bit uncomfortable, and I guess I have to feel like I put effort into breathing deeply, so I'd rather just not do it. Well, to be fair, we do have to put effort into breathing deeply. We do have to put effort into breathing deeply. There's a whole thing around that I'm not super educated in, but I've heard other people who are educated in it talking about it. So, but the effort of doing it is like I think you only need to do the effort for like a few rounds of breath and then you can just breathe normally after that. But it is kind of a meditative process, an intentional process that one has to do anyway. And the expectation isn't that you're going to be breathing correctly from then on out, but it's just in the time that you're doing it, you're allowing your body to kind of relax and process and unwind in a way that it kind of struggles to do because of gestures broadly. You know what I mean? So breathing exercises and stuff like that, they are meant to be self-soothing, which again, I'm not trying to come in here and say that you shouldn't self-soothe and that self-soothing is bad. It's just self-soothe with the intention of this is going to allow me to relax in a way that feels authentic and safe because I'm entitled to safety sometimes. I'm entitled to safety sometimes and to also help you relax because it will help you relax. It'll feel a little weird at first, but eventually the outcome is that it does help you relax and it's okay to relax. It's just also true that sometimes you are rightfully angry about something and your first response doesn't need to be to relax. Maybe you just need to be angry for a second. And then when you're like, all right, enough of that, self-soothing is more like, I think should be treated more like aftercare sometimes, you know? Like, ooh, I'm going to let myself be upregulated in this particular way or whatever, downregulated in this particular way, or just have the experience that I'm having. And then when I'm done having that experience, let me go do something nice for myself, like sit and breathe and meditate and come back into my body or give myself a nice little massage or palpate, stuff like that. It's like aftercare. Sometimes you just need to crash out a little. Anyway. I love watching how the shrooms unlock your mind even further. Brilliant stream. Thanks. I can't wait to go sit down and stare at a wall after this. It's gonna be great. Debt shouldn't even be a thing. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah. Um it's a practice. That's why they call it a practice, right? A meditation practice, a yoga practice, breath work as a practice. It comes in really handy in moments when you do need it, in moments where you can't crash out, in moments where you need to create safety because you are actually safe. Like before you go to bed, deep breathing before you go to bed, and like passive opening postures before you go to bed. So good, especially for your quality of sleep. Breath work before eating meals so that you can actually like digest your food, right? Like, mm. Even breath work when you first wake up in the morning because your body's relying on like cortisol and shit to like wake you up. I mean, I guess one could argue maybe you don't need to do it first thing when you wake up, but maybe you do. I don't know. There are times and places. Okay, I've gone on for too long. It's time for me to leave now. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much for listening to me. I feel like I just said a whole lot and did a whole lot. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to write something for y'all on Patreon. I just don't know what to say. My writer's block be beating my ass, but we'll work on it. If you booked a reading with me and I haven't sent you your recording yet, I will get to it. I will get to it. I am booked out, I think, through November or through December right now because I did block off time off for the holidays because I never have taken holidays off before now. So I think I'm booked until January. I also got into the queer and trans support group, counseling group that I wanted to get into, and I start tomorrow. I'm excited for that. So yeah, I don't have any Monday sessions available. They're all Wednesday sessions, and like I said, they're all booked. So shout out to you guys for that. But yeah, whenever some time rolls around that you can book for January, I would love to talk to you, especially once I'm through with these sessions. So when my calendar permits, hop on that thing. I'll let y'all know. It books 60 days in advance, so probably not until December will it have more times available for January. In the meantime, I don't know. Maybe I can do some mini readings on live or something for you guys soon. That would be cool. Okay. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all later. Love you. Bye.